Good afternoon. It's May 2023. My name is Carrie Woods and I am the Carers Activities Facilitator for Gloucestershire Carers Hub. You've joined an information session today in regards to managing on your own and certain things that you can consider in regards to looking after yourself and you're living independently should your circumstances change and you find the person that you're caring for is no longer living with you. It is not an exhaustive list, so please, very importantly, do reach out and contact Gloucestershire Carers Hub should you need any further advice. At this point, I will give you our telephone number and then reiterate it at the end if you haven't got pen and paper. And the telephone number is 0300 111 9000. Very importantly, this information session is for anybody that defines themselves as a carer. So your circumstances could be quite different. So you could be supporting somebody that lives in a care home. You could be supporting somebody that may have moved further afield into residential accommodation, independent living, or you could find yourself in a situation where the person you're caring for has passed away and you're now finding yourself in a situation where things are adjusting at home and you're needing to consider what you would need to do to make sure that you stay independent, safe and well. I've introduced myself. Again, it's Carrie Woods from Gloucestershire Carers Hub, and you can see another person on the screen. Neil, who is joining us today, is one of our carers at Gloucestershire Carers Hub and has come to share his insight in regards to personal circumstances or situations and his experience in regards to using certain equipment and services that he's had access with. So very importantly, this is one information session. It's dated in May 2023, so things change all of the time and your circumstances change all of the time. So as we highlighted at the beginning, it's not an exhaustive list in regards to things that you need to consider. It's very individual to you. I would always recommend that you do make contact with us, either email, which is carers@peopleplus.co.uk, or you can call us on our telephone number, which is 0300 111 9000. Very importantly, certain things that we're going to be discussing during this presentation talk about certain things that are from a legal point of view. We won't offer legal advice. What we will do is signpost you to the most appropriate resource, either be it a service or agency or charity, that will be able to provide you with that accurate information. It's important that you do make sure that your information is up to date should you be going down any sort of route in regards to legal acts or documents. Now, the first thing to consider, and they do recommend this for, you don't have to wait until you have a long-term medical condition, and you don't have to wait till you are a certain age. Anyone over the age of 18 can actually have a power of attorney put in place. And that means that if you're unable to make decisions for yourself, be it a stroke, progressive long-term conditions, a head injury, if you have a power of attorney in place, what it means is that you have given there is a legal document in place, and there are two versions. One is for finance and one is for health and well-being. If you've completed a lasting power of attorney, what you have done is legally allocated people that you trust to be able to make decisions on your behalf if you do not have capacity. So the most important thing to highlight to you is you could have your lasting power of attorney written today, and it doesn't have to become effective or ever become effective until you are in a situation where you are no longer able to make those decisions for yourself. Once you are in a situation where your lasting power of attorney is in place, you're the people that you have allocated to be able to make those decisions for you, can help you make decisions in regards to financial situations, health and well-being, so such as hospital discharge, care home placement, etc. Importantly, we recognise there are people that may not want to allocate family or friends to be the people that you have highlighted within your power of attorney as the contacts that you would want. If that is the case, you can actually speak to solicitors, and there are a number of solicitors within the Gloucestershire County that are able to provide you with a service. It would be a funded service, you'd have to pay for it, to actually complete your power of attorney and act as your deputy should you be in a situation where you haven't got capacity to make those decisions for yourself. If you are independently going to complete your lasting power of attorney, and you absolutely are able to do so, if you go to the government website and type in lasting power of attorney, it will take you straight through to their webpage, and you can actually access the documents from there. Each lasting power of attorney, so the one for health and wellbeing is £82, and the one for finance is also £82, so £164 for both of them to be written. This is you independently writing them. If you're going to go via a solicitor, there are different charges that would be incurred, and you would advise that you speak to a solicitor to find out what their charges are before you agree to take on their service. There are certain exemptions and reductions that are available to people. So when it comes to completing your lasting power of attorney, it could be significantly cheaper than £82. There's quite a long list on the government website. And what we can do, if you ring Gloucestershire Carers Hub or email us, is to provide you with that list from the government website in regards to those exemptions and reductions. Or alternatively, you can go to the Office of the Public Guardian webpage on the government website and have a look at the list of exemptions they have highlighted there. Now, very importantly, you may be in a situation where you don't have a lasting power of attorney in place, and this be for a variety of different reasons. You may have decided not to go down that route at this particular time. So if you were in a situation where you had lost capacity, at this point, I'm going to hand over to Neil so he can explain the situation and the experience that he has had in regards to using the deputyship process and via the Court of Protection.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My situation was that my wife and I live alone here in Gloucestershire, and my wife had a stroke, unfortunately, just over a year ago. And she has ended up not having the mental capacity to take decisions, look after her affairs, and so on. And as a result of that, I spoke to my own solicitor, which we already had in place, and decided that we should apply for a deputyship at the Court of Protection. And there's quite a lot of paperwork that's got to be completed. You've got to fill out information about the assets of the person, because we were looking at the financial. There are two types of deputyship here again. Like again, it can be for health or finances. We were looking at the financial one. And in doing that, you have got to lay out what assets you have and what assets the person you're wanting to be deputy for has. You have to supply copies of the wills of each other if wills exist. And there's various other assurances and commitments you have to make, and you then make the application to the Court of Protection. That process, to safeguard the interests of the person you're making the application for, you also have to nominate a number of people, I think the minimum is 2, who might have an interest in the fact that you're applying for a deputyship. A typical example would be if, let's take, say, for example, it was your husband or wife, then there may be some children, or there may be siblings of the person being applied for, and you would want them to be aware. And the reason for that is it gives them the opportunity to object if they felt strongly about the fact that you shouldn't be taking on this role, or it would be inappropriate for you to do it. And the court will contact the people that you nominate in that way and ask them for their comments before they deal with your application. They then deal with the application, and they come back to you and give you the deputyship. One of the conditions, again, to protect the interests of the person you're being deputy for, is that you have to take out an insurance bond, the size of which will depend on the size of assets that are at risk, if you like to think of it that way, of the person you're being deputy for. And it's an annual fee that you have to pay, and means that in the event that somebody is able to show that you've used that person's funds inappropriately for your own gain or something like that, and that money can't be recouped from you, then the insurance kicks in, and the person you're deputy for would not lose out. So it does mean that almost as though everybody, regardless of how trustworthy they are, is treated as a potential criminal, and you have to pay a fee to insure against that. So that's the background to all of that. I applied for my wife's deputyship in August of last year, which was about 2.5 months after she'd had her stroke, where it became apparent that any recovery was going to be very slow and probably rather limited. And the process involved not only filling out the paperwork, but you have to go to, for example, the consultant in the hospital who has to have an understanding of the Mental Capacity Act and signs off that the person does not have and is unlikely to have in the future mental capacity. One of the difficulties of that being that you have to, you could be dealing with somebody who often doesn't have mental capacity, but sometimes does. And that leads to a rather ugly requirement, which is that once the paperwork comes through and you're applying for that deputyship, you have to so-called serve it on the person you are applying as deputy for, which means simply giving them and seeing if they would understand it. In many cases, they wouldn't, but you have to go through that process in case it was one of the few occasions that they had mental capacity and would be able to make some comments about it. Anyway, we applied in August last year, and we finally got our deputyship. I got the deputyship in late April of 2023. That's a period of 9 months. And just to illustrate that, my solicitor told me when we first applied, currently it could take up to 6 months to do that. And by the time we got ours through, it was 9 months. And even more absurdly, the court itself took the decision in December, early December, that yes, we were granting the deputyship. But it took them until the middle of April, 4 months later, before the admin kicked in enough to deal with the work in order to give me the deputyship. So be aware that this is a very lengthy process, and it also underlines the reason for having powers of attorney. If there's not some other strong reason for not having them, I would strongly recommend that you take out powers of attorney, or one person for another as appropriate. So that's my experience, Carrie.
Thanks very much for sharing that, Neil. I really do appreciate that. Importantly, I'll go back to the presentation, that if you do not have a suitable person that can act as your deputy and you do not have a lasting power of attorney in place, the court will appoint a deputy that's independent of your family. This is usually the authorised officer within Gloucestershire County Council and sits within the client affairs team. And again, he's completely independent and not known to you at this particular point. So another thing to make you aware of is independent advocates. So if you don't have a lasting power of attorney in place and no one to become a deputy, independent advocates can be instructed to protect your rights. They are also known as IMCAs. I would highly recommend that if you're at a particular point where you're looking at independent advocacy, that you do contact Gloucestershire Carers Hub so we can inform you of the relevant service that you would need to speak to within Gloucestershire to find out who your IMCA is. Alongside considering, from a legal point of view, who would make sure that your health and well-being and your financial rights are protected, would recommend that if you want, in regards to decisions around what treatment you'd want in an emergency situation, that you have a conversation with your healthcare professional, starting with potentially your GP, in regards to the completion of your RESPECT form. Now, your RESPECT form stands for your Recommended Summary Plan, Emergency Care and Treatment. This is a personalised plan with you and your healthcare professional, and you can involve other family members or potentially if you have carers or people that are supporting you in these conversations. What it looks at is what your preferences would be in an emergency situation, what you do and do not want to be considered in regards to care and treatment in an emergency. An example could be that you do not want to go into hospital, or you do not want to be admitted to a care home. It allows you to have your voice heard in regards to the medical emergencies. It also considers what your medical background is and the reasons why those decisions might be made. It also documents exactly what, from a medical point of view, what needs to be considered before you're taken into hospital or whilst you're in hospital, and also includes decisions in regards to resuscitation. Going back to our conversation about lasting power of attorney, there is also a specific part of this document that talks about who has responsibility regarding lasting power of attorney should you be in a situation where you weren't able to have your voice heard for a variety of different reasons. This document is ever evolving, so it's not a one size fits all and it's not completed today and that is it. It's an ongoing conversation and can be updated as and when it needs to be completed and updated. And it's held by you, so you have this within your home. You have peace of mind in an emergency situation. Should the paramedics or the out-of-hours hospital doctor service arrive at your home, you can provide them with this document, and it gives them an up-to-date idea of what the most appropriate treatment for you would be at this present moment in time. Other things to consider in regards to ensuring that people know what your decisions would be in regards to a living will, treatments that you want to refuse. They use two terms. One of them is advanced decision, one of them is living will. And these documents have to be very detailed and specific. I'd highlight at the bottom of this page, the Compassion in Dying website has a template that you can use to be able to consider the sorts of things that you need to write down and in regards to how you need to write it. It ensures, it's a legally binding document, but it ensures healthcare professionals should follow your wishes. There's also the caveat that if you're sectioned under the Mental Health Act, different rules will apply. And at that particular point, if there are family members, friends, or other people around you that are supporting you, those conversations will happen with you and with those people should you give consent. You do not need a solicitor to complete advanced decision, but it needs to be very specific and clear. So having a look at the template on the Compassion in Dying website would be a useful way of you finding out exactly how that conversation needs to be written and framed. Another one to consider is advanced statements. So it could be things that you actually do want to consider and do want to give permission for, should you find yourself in a situation where you might need further support. An example given there is GPS tracker systems. So you might be happy for family or people that are supporting you to have a GPS tracker key ring, add it to your car keys, or have some sort of sensor or monitoring system within your home that you are happy to have in place to ensure your safety. If it is documented within an advanced statement, it allows the people that are supporting you to be able to provide that assurance to external services or people that are visiting your home or providing you with care that you have given consent for this to be in place should you lose your capacity. It's not legally binding. It just helps guide decisions, and it could be something as simple as certain clothing that you do not want to wear, certain conversations that you may have had with family members, friends, or people that are supporting, and you have very specific, detailed requests, and you can write them into these advanced statements. Again, you can go to the Compassion in Dying website and they have a template that you can use, but it doesn't have to be templated. It could be written on a piece of paper and you can sign it, witness it, and it's that assurance that you've agreed to have these things or these decisions put in place for you. Very importantly, if you're living independently and you haven't got other people that are available to come and check on you on a daily basis, or maybe potentially you don't get those regular phone calls to see if you're okay, there may be other things that you can consider. I'm going to hand straight over to Neil at this particular point to be able to share his experiences. Over to you, Neil.
Okay, thank you again, Carrie. Can you share my screen, or are you seeing it now?
Not yet. I can't see your screen just yet.
Okay, I'll leave it just for a moment. I explained my situation earlier about I now live alone with my wife in a nursing home. We don't, unfortunately, have any close members of family anywhere in the UK. Well, I think there's one in Western Scotland and one on the South Coast, but they're older than I am, and that made me feel very vulnerable. It meant that if something happens to me during the night, or I slip and fall in the shower and can't get up, how long would it be before somebody was aware that that had happened to me? And so I was looking for something that, along the lines of what Harry's just been mentioning, that would protect me to some degree against that situation. And I settled on a device called ActiCheck. So I'll just share my screen now, and if I can do it. You should be able to see a
Absolutely.
picture of that device, a wristband device. And I'll actually hold I'll hold it up at the end. You won't be able to see it. Or can you see me on the wrist on my wrist?
You can,
now?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You can see it's a device. It looks like a fitness tracker or something that's on my wrist. And that addressed what I thought were the needs that I personally had. I just want to emphasize just now that I'm not recommending particularly this product. I don't have any connection with the company. I'm just giving you my experience of having used their product. I've had it now for about 1 month to 6 weeks. And basically what happens is that if you an alarm gets raised if certain things happen. For example, if I'm classed as the wearer of this device, if I fall in the house and remain still, I can also fall in the garden and remain still. I fall off a ladder or just fall because I go unconscious or for whatever reason. If I start moving again, then the alarm will not be raised. But if I remain still for a period, then the alarm will be triggered. I'll tell you what happens once an alarm is triggered in a moment. The second way that an alarm could be triggered is if I press both buttons on the wristband. There's a button on either side of that device I showed you. You press them both together and it sets the alarm process going. And the third thing it does is that you set up a number of occasions, usually 2 per day, that it will call you. And it calls you by buzzing the wrist, and you feel the buzzing on your wrist. And if you're all right, you press the button and say, yes, I'm okay. But if you don't respond to that, that's what's called a failure to respond to that, and that also triggers the alarm. So let's see what happens if the alarm is triggered. I have set up a number of people that are called responders, and these are neighbours that wouldn't normally expect to want to call me a couple of times a day to check that I was all right, or to come in and see me every day to check that I was all right, but they are willing to be on call in the event of an emergency. And what happens when the alarm is triggered is, first of all, I'm called at home to check that it wasn't a false alarm. They phone me on my phone at home, and I can at that point say, no, something's gone wrong. I'm perfectly okay now, or there wasn't an alarm. I can stop it from happening. But assuming that I don't again say stop that, they start looking at each of the responders on my list in turn, and they say to one of them, send them a message saying, it's a recorded message saying that Neil Cameron has triggered the alarm and is needing help. Can you assist? If that person either doesn't respond because they don't answer their phone, or it's gone to voicemail or something like that, the system then moves on to the next responder on the list. When that happens, you go down the list. I've got 4 responders on my list. If you go around all 4 of them and nobody has responded, it will go around them all again, giving them a second opportunity to say, well, nobody has said they're able to assist at this moment. Again, we're asking you, can you assist? And if none of them say it on that way through, then I've paid for a small fee. It's currently about £40 a year. There's a 24/7 service that would call the emergency services in that situation. So I get all that reassurance. What it does mean in the situation, if the alarm has happened and somebody has said, I can take this, is they then go to they send details of how to get into my house. So what I've got in my access instructions, as they're called, they're stored on a hub inside my house. They're encrypted, so it's only in the event of an alarm that anyone can see them. And those get sent to the person who said, yes, I'll handle the situation. And what that access instructions in my case include, but typically would include, are how to get into the house, where the keys are, what the combination code for the door lock is there an alarm, how to switch it off, and where I might be, remembering that I might be in the garden, or I might be in the garage, or I might be upstairs in a bedroom. And the onus is then on the person who's responded and said, yes, I'll handle this, to deal with that and to come and rescue me from the situation. So that's basically my thing. You want to stop and sharing the screen back to you, or take it to your back. I'm just going to say, Carrie, that's a fairly short summary of what I use that band for. I may not have covered everything, and there's lots of, shall I say, it wasn't the easiest thing to set up because there's so much information that you have to put into it with the responders and their telephone numbers and their email addresses, giving them their own logins so that they can specify periods that they're not available and so on, that it's quite a bit of work to set it up. But I found their help service very good in answering my questions. But I was just going to say to you, Carrie, finally, that if anybody needs further information on that particular device or my experience with it, I'd be happy to be contacted through you to answer them.
That's brilliant. That's really kind of you. Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the presentation. that was Neil's experience in regards to one particular service. There is a screen image in front of you that highlights another service called OK Each Day, and they have a very slightly similar format, but use a telephone system. So there's multiple ones that are out there. Again, you can contact us at Gloucestershire Carers Hub. Also, you can also go to the Disabilities Living Foundation, type in Ask Sarah and make a search through them in regards to answering a series of questions, highlighting what your need is, and they can then provide you with a sort of a directory of services that may be able to provide that service. So other things that you can consider are sort of personal alarms. So different types of alarms. So you've got basic alarms that will make a loud noise to alert people nearby, ones that can be linked to apps and pages, monitoring systems such as the 24-hour systems, false detectors, GPS and wireless tracking devices. There are numerous ones out there. At the bottom of this presentation, you can see that then I've highlighted that the Which Guide have a whole guide in regards to choosing assistive technology, where to buy the alarms, what to consider. So it's always worth having a little look around to see what might suit your needs the best. Other types of systems that might be available to you are monitoring systems within your home. Again, due to smart technology, such systems such as iRing and Alexa can be set up to help with monitoring. There are also complex systems in regards to movement, detecting doors opening, changes in room temperature. It can be linked to the fire, if a fire alarm goes off. Multiple different systems out there. Advising, as I've mentioned, in regards to the Ask Sarah website, or contacting us at Gloucestershire Carers Hub so we can signpost you to different services that can be considered. Linking back to what I said in regards to advanced statements, if you have these types of equipment put in your home, for peace of mind, it's worth highlighting it in a statement that you have given permission for this to be at home, that you've given permission to wear this equipment and you understand and how it works. Just in case you're in a situation where you should lose capacity or the ability to articulate these conversations, it gives the people that are supporting you around you that assurance that they are still doing the right thing and they have full consent from yourself. And very importantly, in regards to the information that we've talked about today, one of the emergency things that you can have in place is something called a message in a bottle. It's been going around for quite some time. It's the Lions charity, National Lions Charity, so it's a nationally recognised scheme that is in place. Can provide something called a message in a bottle. You can get these from numerous different places. You can try your local pharmacist, your GPs, just explore where they may be available. Your local Lions Club can have them. Make contact with us at Gloucestershire Carers Hub if you're struggling to get hold of one. But it's a very simple and effective way of communicating your needs, where important documents can be found in your home. So that includes your respect form. It could be information in regards to the alarm system that you have in place, where your lasting power of attorney is kept. There are certain other personalised care documents, like the What Matters to Me in the county, that you can also document where you will find these, because these are big A4 documents. So you might store your documents by your mantelpiece or underneath your telephone, but this message in a bottle stays within your fridge. So it's a little plastic bottle. Inside that bottle is a form, and you document all of these things, where you will find these important documents, who your emergency contacts are, your allergies, medical conditions, you name it, you can put that information onto that document. Then you put that document inside that little tub, and then you put it in your fridge. Now, the reason why they suggest keeping this in your fridge is 9 times out of 10, most of us have some sort of refrigeration facility. So keeping it in there means it's in a safe place that's unlikely to move around when we all have a spring clean and move our safe place to a different safe place. And then in an emergency situation, you can't find where you put that document. You have 2 stickers with this message in a bottle. One of them goes on your fridge and the other one goes on the inside of your door, not on the front door, the inside of your front door, to ensure that when somebody closes the door, they can see that you have a message in a bottle in the home, and they can go to the fridge to find it. It just gives peace of mind that it's joining the dots of all the communication all the paperwork, everything that you have in place, it can be communicated to the emergency services that should visit your home. This is a completely free service to be able to access. And then ultimately this form is likely to go with you should you be taken into hospital. So again, that communication continues with the emergency providers that may be able to support you at that particular moment in time.
And finally, the presentation today is not an exhaustive list in regards to things that you can consider. We just hope that it does give you the opportunity to think through a few of your options. However, I would recommend, if you want to talk this through or get further advice, to give us a call at Gloucestershire Carers Hub on 0300 111 9000. Or you can go to our website, www.gloucestershirecarershub.co.uk.
Massively appreciate that. And thank you to anyone that is actually listening to this presentation and has taken the time to work your way through its content. Thank you.
Can I add something on
course
the
you
end of
can.
that? I've used the Carers Hub in Gloucestershire over the last year quite extensively, and I've found them extremely helpful in answering questions and helping me sort out problems. So I can't recommend them more than saying that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.